Imagine buying your dream lake cabin, a quiet escape from the chaos of city life, only to arrive one weekend and find it completely gone. No warning, no notice, just an empty patch of dirt where your home once stood. The HOA claimed you didn't pay your fees. But here's the twist, the entire family who owned that cabin? Federal agents. And what happened next would turn this sleepy lakeside community into the center of a nationwide investigation. Mark stood frozen, staring at the empty patch of dirt where his family's lake cabin once stood. The air smelled of fresh sawdust and diesel, as if the destruction had happened only hours ago. Emily gripped his arm tightly, her knuckles pale, whispering, They tore it down. It didn't make sense. They were up to date on every HOA fee, every special assessment, every ridiculous shoreline beautification fine. There had been no warnings, no letters, no calls. When they confronted the HOA office, the president, a smug man named Harold Kinsey, barely looked up from his phone. "You ignored repeated notices," he said flatly. "Unpaid fees. 3 years' worth." Mark slid a folder across the counter, bank statements, canceled checks, proof of payment. Harold barely glanced at them. "Doesn't matter," he said. "The demolition was approved by the board. You should have read the bylaws." That was the moment Mark knew something was very wrong. This wasn't just about money. Someone wanted them gone. Over the next few days, they started digging. Neighbors whispered in hushed tones about strange late-night meetings at the clubhouse. One elderly resident told Emily about envelopes stuffed with cash, passed under the table during HOA planning sessions. Another hinted that the board was using fake fines and secret assessments to drive certain families out and sell their properties to an out-of-state developer for huge profits. Then Mark stumbled onto something even darker. A locked filing cabinet in the HOA office, accessed after hours with a quietly obtained key, held copies of property deeds, court filings, and bank transfers totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars. Many of the signatures looked forged. When Mark confronted Harold again, the man's smirk was gone. "You have no idea who you're messing with," he hissed. That one sentence told Mark everything. This wasn't just a crooked HOA president padding his pockets. This was organized. It went deep. And Harold had no idea that Mark, Emily, and Mark's brother, all 3 federal agents, weren't about to let it slide. Mark and Emily decided they couldn't wait any longer. This wasn't just about their cabin anymore. They reached out to Mark's brother, Ryan, a senior federal investigator, and brought him up to speed. Within hours, Ryan drove in from D.C. carrying a portable forensic kit, encrypted laptops, and a determination to expose whatever was hiding beneath this HOA's polished surface. What began as a personal nightmare was quickly turning into a full-blown federal investigation. Their first target was the HOA's financial records. On paper, everything looked perfectly legal, neat spreadsheets, approved budgets, and board meeting minutes. But when Ryan cross-referenced them against county property tax data, the numbers didn't match. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in maintenance fees were being funneled into ghost accounts. And yet, when they checked the lake's infrastructure, there was no evidence of repairs or upgrades. The HOA wasn't spending the money, it was disappearing. One night, Mark tailed Harold Kinsey, the HOA president, after a so-called emergency board meeting. Instead of going home, Harold drove 20 miles to an abandoned marina. Mark watched from a distance as Harold met with 2 men in black SUVs. They exchanged envelopes before driving off in opposite directions. Something about it screamed organized crime. Back home, Emily dug deeper into the property records and discovered a stunning pattern. Dozens of homes around the lake had been condemned over the last 2 years for alleged violations, then sold to a shell company for pennies on the dollar. That shell company? Tied to a real estate conglomerate based in Miami, known for laundering money through vacation properties. The next morning, a warning arrived. A single sheet of paper slid under their cabin door. Stop digging, or you'll lose more than your cabin. Mark tightened his jaw but said nothing. He and Ryan quietly set up surveillance cameras, recording every vehicle entering and leaving the HOA office. Within 2 days, they caught something shocking on video, Harold meeting privately with a county zoning official and handing him a thick stack of cash. That was the final piece they needed. This wasn't a simple HOA power trip. It was a multi-state fraud ring, involving developers, politicians, and law enforcement insiders. But Harold and his allies still thought Mark was just a frustrated homeowner. They had no idea they were facing 3 federal agents, and the storm that was about to hit them. Ryan knew they couldn't trust the local police, not when zoning officials were already on Harold's payroll. Instead, he contacted a few discreet colleagues at the FBI's Financial Crimes Division, briefing them on the shell companies, forged deeds, and bribery evidence. The agents agreed to assist, but only if Mark's family could obtain irrefutable proof connecting Harold and the HOA board to the Miami developers. That's when the idea for a sting operation was born. They planted a hidden recorder inside the HOA's conference room, disguised as a decorative wall vent. Over the next 3 days, Mark and Emily blended in like ordinary homeowners, attending board workshops and sitting quietly as Harold spun tales about community improvements and future investments. But the recording device captured a very different story: whispered discussions about falsifying violations, manipulating appraisals, and strong-arming families into selling under threat of demolition, exactly like they had done to Mark's cabin. Then came the turning point. On the 4th night, Harold called an emergency meeting behind closed doors. Ryan slipped into the security room and patched into the boardroom's live feed. What they saw sent chills down his spine. Harold was on speakerphone with someone identified only as Mr. Duval, the Miami-based developer funding the scheme. "We've got 3 more properties to condemn this week," Harold said, flipping through paperwork. "Once those are cleared, Phase 2 begins. By next summer, the entire west shoreline will be ours." Mr. Duval's voice was calm but cold. "And the feds? Any heat?" "Nothing to worry about," Harold replied. "We'll handle it." Ryan saved the entire recording. But their operation didn't stay secret for long. The following evening, as Mark drove home, headlights appeared in his rearview mirror, bright, unblinking, and too close. Within minutes, a black SUV swerved alongside him, forcing his truck off the road and into a ditch. The driver stepped out, wearing a dark suit and mirrored sunglasses, and delivered a single message. "Stop investigating, or next time, it won't just be your cabin." Instead of backing down, Mark doubled his efforts. That night, he and Emily uploaded all the gathered evidence to an encrypted FBI server. If anything happened to them, the investigation would go public. What Harold didn't know was that the FBI was already mobilizing. By morning, agents were preparing to descend on the lakeside community. And the HOA board had no idea their entire empire was about to collapse. The morning of the raid was unnervingly quiet. Mist rolled off the lake as the sun barely broke the horizon, but behind the stillness, federal agents were positioning themselves around the HOA's main office. Mark, Emily, and Ryan sat in an unmarked SUV nearby, their earpieces crackling softly as the operation went live. For weeks, they'd gathered evidence, tracked financial transactions, and recorded private conversations. Now, it was time to bring the entire scheme down. At precisely 6 a.m., the silence shattered. "FBI. Open up." Agents in tactical gear swarmed the HOA headquarters, breaching doors and securing files before anyone could destroy evidence. Harold Kinsey, the once cocky HOA president, stood frozen in his office, halfway through shredding documents when 2 agents pinned him against the wall. His smirk was gone. His empire was crumbling. As agents searched the premises, they uncovered far more than anyone expected: offshore bank accounts, fake property deeds, and encrypted emails tying the HOA board directly to Mr. Duval and his Miami-based development syndicate. The so-called unpaid fees weren't real at all. They were part of a calculated scheme to drive families out, seize their properties, and funnel millions of dollars through shell corporations. But the most shocking discovery came from a hidden server room beneath the HOA office. Behind a locked steel door, agents found encrypted files detailing years of illegal transactions, kickbacks to county officials, bribes to zoning inspectors, and forged signatures from dozens of homeowners who'd been forced out. The scale of the operation was staggering. It wasn't just Mark's cabin. Nearly 50 families had been targeted. By noon, Harold and the entire HOA board were in federal custody. Mr. Duval was arrested in Miami the same day, charged with racketeering, wire fraud, and conspiracy. Within weeks, a federal task force began working to return stolen properties to the rightful owners, including Mark and Emily's cabin lot. Standing on the empty patch of dirt where their cabin once stood, Mark finally allowed himself to breathe. Justice had been served, but the case left behind an unsettling truth. HOAs across the country had unchecked power, and for some, greed turned communities into battlegrounds. And here's the thing. This wasn't an isolated story. Cases like this are happening everywhere. If you've ever faced an HOA nightmare, share your experience in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to HOA Case Files for more shocking, real-life stories just like this one, where ordinary homeowners take on extraordinary battles.